This is an Age of Empires 4 coaching video. We're going to watch a game and give some advice and tips and hopefully help our player here. He's going to play Delhi on Dry Arabia against a French opponent. And I've watched this game prior. I always watch the game pretty much on 8 speed before I review it, just so I have a general idea of what's going to occur, what advice I need to give. So there's a couple of odd aspects to this game. So we have yellow Delhi Sultanate against red French. We're going to switch to yellow here and go into caster mode. So, of course, I'm going to be using God Vision. I'm not following your camera. I'm not seeing what you see. So you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt when I'm pointing things out. And we're going to mostly focus on overall strategy things rather than being picky with the build order, though your build order is pretty solid here. We'll 4-speed through the first part. So, I mean, the general goal is Delhi, which I think you do a good job of, is you get your mosque and mill up, you immediately start getting upgrades. Weirdest thing maybe in this game is that the French guy tower rushes you with 1 villager, which I would not have ever expected him to do. It's not very effective for him to do this. He puts himself behind a little bit, so I would actually say this is a bit of a win for you, but you're going to get your gold for age up. Slows you down a little bit on your second scholar, but that's no big deal. You'll take care of that later. You do the right thing, just pull out of there and send them to another resource. So we know our French guy is going to make knights. You would generally assume he's going to go into knight archer, but he really just goes knight this game. Once you hit feudal as Delhi, you want to make sure you're getting all your researches and throwing down a stable immediately. So again, he's going to burn this mining camp down, but doesn't really matter. You do want to make sure you start getting specialized pick anyways. So when you're playing against French, you always kind of want to think about, like, what are victories to the game? How can I beat the French player? This French player plays the game very oddly, as we'll see once we get further into the game, but you kind of know that the French player is eventually going to run out of sheep, first of all, and then he's going to have to move on to the map for food resources, and when can you hit that and exploit that? And we also want to make sure we're scouting in any game to see what resources is the opponent gathering a lot of. Because if we scout this French base right now and we see that he's got 11 guys on gold, there should be something that goes off in your head like, this guy might be going fast castle. If he had thrown down a bunch more stables, you know that, hey, he's just trying to pump out a lot of knights. But if he's just rocking school of cavalry and has 11 people on gold, you can pretty much think this guy's trying to go fast castle. I like that you went Ghazi spear here. Excuse me. I think what I would like to see you do more of as this game develops is have a decent amount of spearmen in your base to defend from the night raids. I'm actually going to pause at this point because we can see he has 4 knights right now because you killed a couple. You've got 7 spears, 7 Ghazis. So if we're trying to think about how can we stop the French guy from attacking our eco, how can we attack back? One, I don't hate getting textiles if you're playing against French because you know he's going to come attack your villagers with knights. If you get more wood piled up, you can throw a wall at this back area in between these woods with some spearmen. You don't even need to use your villagers. And that will greatly reduce the area where the knights can come into your base. You know they'll be coming into the front, and you can park some spearmen around here and then buy your vital resources like berries and woodline. But I would like to see the Ghazi Raiders constantly attacking. Like, I don't want to see Ghazi Raiders in your base or out here chilling near the middle of the map. I want to see, and you do that a bit here, which I think is great idle time against this guy. But the Ghazi Raiders you've got here, you should also send them around to attack. We want the Ghazi Raiders constantly attacking and raiding. Yeah, and you don't really want to get any TC fire by these Ghazis. Like, once the villagers are off the resources, just pull the Ghazis back. You don't want to lose them in the TC. It can be tempting to, like, okay, I can get this one more villager kill, but at the end of the day, you want to keep the Ghazis alive, and every single time he goes back to the resource, you charge back in with Ghazis. So, at this point in the game, we've got Sanctity, so we should already be capturing a Sacred Site. You don't need to wall. I mean, you can wall up the Sacred Site. Let me re-explain this. You don't need to wall it before you get the monk out there. If you've got spearmen defending the monk, just send the monk out and have the Sacred Site captured. Key thing here we're going to see is, you know, you started raiding him, and I assume he kind of says, okay, I got to get this guy out of my base, so I need to go raid his base. That's going to pull his army back, which is exactly what occurs here. And we can see he's going to castle behind this. So the French guy basically says, I'm going to go raid and attack with knights. I'm going to age up to castle behind this. And that's exactly what he does. So we've got all these units chasing this guy around. And what we really need here is some spears defending our food and our wood. And we need these Ghazis back here causing a reign of terror. You got 12 Ghazis. So two things are going to happen when you send your Ghazis to his base. You're going to idle villagers, possibly kill villagers. And these knights that he's got kind of screwing around in your base, he's got to pull them back. Because he's got no other troops back here. So, I mean, I think it's a little unusual that you're going to see French just goes to knights and straight to castle, but it's not. It can happen. So you want to make sure you're scouting. You know where they're getting food on the map, and you want to exploit that by hitting it with Ghazis. You don't really want the Ghazis chasing around knights. If he turned around here, if he had better micro, he could turn around, kill a Ghazi. You chase him, turn around, kill a Ghazi, and so again, you got some wood. I'd be fine with. Also, if you want to control how the knights are coming into your base, you could use spearmen to throw up a short wall here, maybe a wall at the back of your base, and then the knights couldn't just run through like this. They would have to come from the front of the base, and you'd have a better idea where they are. So, I really think the key thing in this game is raiding, scouting and raiding. So you want to constantly know where your enemy is on their food resources and their gold resources if you're playing against French. This guy has a very weird strategy, and he has 24 guys on stone. We're going to see he just starts throwing down keeps in his base, which is, it's odd. We also probably want to capture sacred sites a bit faster. Like, as soon as you get Sanctity, you had Spearmen, you could have sent the Scholar out here and captured the Sacred Site. So, again, if I look at this game right now, he's got 5 Knights. Like, before this first keep even went up, you should have won the game, if that makes sense. Like, there's no reason the French guy should have been alive. The military is 56-6. Like, you have firm control of the game militarily. You just needed to get in his base, if that makes sense. Once he starts throwing these keeps up, you know, you're going to have to get rams, probably siege later, and castle. It's going to be harder to kill his base. But again, he's got to move out onto the map for resources. So this keep at the front of his base, it defends his wood, but, you know, nothing else. He's just gathering stone. I'm not even sure, you know, why he's doing this. But, again, if he's going to turtle on his base, get the sacred sites. And get the sacred sites, raid his eco. He's got so many villagers over here if you were scouting you could pick off. He's just got villagers on wood and stone. He's not really even bringing in enough food per minute to get villagers. So, yeah, and see here, you don't want to fight into the keeps once you see those are up. We need to leave some spearmen at home to stop the night raids. Spearmen and palisade walls to stop these night raids in your base. It's not like you have to have a lot of spearmen. He doesn't have a whole lot of knights. And see, now you are doing what you should do, which is going through and killing all his villagers, but now he's got 2 keeps up in his base, so you don't want to attack the base, at least in range of the keeps. This is going to be a lesson on always having a scout with our army, because you're going to run right past 24 gold villagers down here in the game. Again, we don't want to throw units away in the keep here. Again, he's out on the map on food. And you end up walking past all these guys. If you had a scout, you probably would have seen those. So, key part of this game is our scouting. Like, we know the enemy. Does the enemy have farms? Like, how is the enemy getting food? He doesn't even have room for farms in his base because all these crazy keeps. So we know he's out on the map somewhere. Like, we know he's got villagers on the map. Where are his villagers? They're not in his base. And that's when we need to start looking at food sources out on the map. And we need to start looking at gold sources out on the map. Because he's got 14 and 24 villagers out in the open on the map. Which, like, those would be easy targets for your Ghazi Raiders. Again, he's only got 4 knights right now. See, good right here on the food. You see him on these berries out here, you should say, okay, where else is he on food out on the map? Because I need to get after that. But yeah, I would just ignore the keeps right now. He's got 3 keeps in his base. We just want map control. Want map control, want to secure sacred sites. He's going to go imp here. And he hasn't been... So one thing I would point out is we don't want to just make units because we think those are units we should make as deli. I'm going to pause here to explain a couple things. One is we want to put more villagers on our compounded defender. 3 villagers can take a really long time to get to castle, so we need more villagers to age up to castle faster. If you're going to build this wall, we kind of want to bring it around here maybe to the stone mine, then cut in front of the base a little bit because this doesn't really defend our wood line. I'm sure it was attached to the wood line at one point, and I would still do walls out here. And you've been making a lot of archers, which if he was making archers or spearmen, I would understand that, but we haven't seen him make anything but knights this game. And so we really only want to build units to counter what the enemy is making. I mean, you're always going to make Ghazis. You need them for raiding. But we don't want to just make units because we think that's, you know, just what Delhi does. Delhi just makes archers. Well, if he's just making knights, you just need spearmen. You just need spearmen and Ghazi Raiders, and the archers aren't going to really do anything against these knights, especially once they're Imperial Knights. I thought he was going Imperial because of how many resources he had saved, but he did not. So again, he's mining gold way out on the map. We just need to scout and kill those villagers. Same with the deer out here. Few things when you hit castle. We want our scholars to immediately come out and grab these relics. So there's 1, 2, 3 relics. There's a few things you want to think about when you hit castle. One is use scholar to grab relics and grab all of our upgrades. Start grabbing all of our upgrades out of Compound of Defender, from our mill, from our lumber camp, from our mining camp. We want to upgrade our spearmen. I'd also love to see a lot more barracks from you. But again, I still feel like at this point in the game, you're kind of letting this guy stay alive. You got 88 military versus 13. Like, you're just letting this guy hang around in the game right now when you should have killed him a long time ago. The army's just not getting used. And again, we have God vision here. It's easy for us to see, hard for you to see. But I would encourage you to look back at your replays sometimes and look how close you were to taking out a large group of villagers and really hurting this guy. Because that's a few times he's been mining this game. Still on the same berries up here. So I think I can pause the game here before kind of this final battle and give you a few key takeaways. Which is, one, we always want to be using Ghazi Raiders to raid. And we always want to make sure we have scouts with those Ghazi Raiders. It's early game that's important, but especially late game, we kind of want to look and see, does our opponent have farms? If our opponent does not have farms, then he's out on the map somewhere gathering food. We need to find where he is on the map gathering that food, kill the villagers, idle the villagers, and don't just do that one time. You know, we want to repeatedly come back and check those resources with the Ghazi Raiders over and over and over again. Because what a lot of players will do is they'll move the villagers back to their base and they'll send them right back to the same resources. Second thing, when we want to talk about preventing raids from knights, which he, did get 10 of your villagers, idled you a good bit, even though I know you're leading him in eco. Let's get some palisade walls up here. Doesn't have to be super early in the game because units are more important at that point. But let's get palisades up to get some map control. And, you can keep some spears at home base to defend against those early night raids. Anytime you age up, you did a good job of this early in the game. Not as good of a job later. Especially when you hit feudal, castle, imperial. Anytime you're aging up, you want to think about, what upgrades do I need to grab as a Delhi player? I want to grab my upgrades as soon as possible. You did a good job with the blacksmiths here. But we want to do the same thing with our eco upgrades. And with our unit upgrades. You're not upgrading your spearmen. You could throw down more barracks to do this. But we've got 30 spearmen. We know he's making knights. That's going to be a very, very important upgrade. Another thing I would say, which I kind of briefly just talked about, was as soon as you hit castle as Delhi, you having the scholars grab the relics and bring them back home. That'd be a big advantage for you. And I think just general map control in this game, we can speed through this end part. I actually don't know how much time is left in the game at this point, probably a lot, but I think just general map control is the problem here, right? Like, you have 3 minutes on the sacred sites. You should win this game. Let's see how the sacred site thing goes here. He's going to go for a different sacred site. He's going to go for the top one. Yep. So that's how he stops you from getting sacred site victory, just because he's got movement on the field, and he's just spamming knights now. Yeah, I would just say the biggest thing is you kind of let this guy hang around in the game when you should have killed him early. He's got villagers all over the map, so we kind of want to take advantage of that. And just constantly scout. I'm not sure you have a scout with the army right now, but you have 3 stables. So even if you just make a scout every once in a while and shift queue them all around the map, just to different resource points to see where the enemy is, I think that'd greatly help you with your gameplay and where you're at. So if you have any further questions for me about the game, I know I didn't watch a lot of the late game here, but that's because I think you could have won the game much earlier. Just let me know in the YouTube comments. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching.